Hello and welcome. This is everything you need to know for Divisional Round Fantasy Football. We'll highlight everything we saw during Wildcard Weekend and what you need to know going forward. I think, Evan, we should start with what was the most impressive win, I thought, and the most impressive performance, and that was the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers defense was awesome in this game against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys' elite offense. But this offense, the youngest offense in the NFL, insanely young skill players, go to Dallas, score 6 offensive touchdowns, put up 48 total points. We've been talking for a month now, 6 weeks, about how good Jordan Love has been. I don't think anyone could have expected this in Dallas. Evan, what do you think of Jordan Love and the Packers going to Dallas and putting a beat down on the Cowboys?
Yeah, the Packers were the youngest team in the NFL this year, and they were the youngest team ever to win a playoff game. You had a great tweet on the ages of their pass catchers, like 7 guys going on all the way down to Bo Melton, who they got legitimate contributions from late in the season. All those dudes are, either very early in their rookie contracts or in the first year of their rookie contracts. And Jordan Love has been performing at Nick Underhill just randomly texted me. He was like, name your top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, maybe going forward for the next 1 to 3 years. And I had to have Jordan Love in my top 8. And I think you could even maybe put him ahead of Dak Prescott, who I had at 7, 7, because I had Herbert at 6, Dak at 7, and then Jordan Love at 8. I mean, I think he could belong anywhere in that conversation. The dude is ripping it. The way that the Packers have had so much success, they play under center offense at maybe one of the highest rates in the league. And they win off play action, and they run the ball from under center. And, we think of this, the NFL is becoming more of like a spread league. The Packers don't necessarily do that, although they do have the personnel to do that if they wanted to. But they ran it right down the Cowboys' throats with Aaron Jones. They ran right at the Cowboys are really undersized at linebacker. In particular, Marquise Bell, who winds up playing almost all of their snaps. He weighs 212 pounds. The Packers would just run right at him and then crush the Cowboys off of play action. Extremely impressive win, and I agree with you, probably by far the most surprising win of the weekend.
Jordan Love, the ball that Jordan Love throws, and you guys know me, I'm no tape bro, but man, the ball coming out of Jordan Love's hand is insanely tight spiral, insane zip on the ball. And he's been so accurate for the last 2 months. It's crazy. From a fantasy perspective, no A.J. Dillon here, and Aaron Jones just goes nuts. Aaron Jones, 5 games since he came off of that knee injury, 13-53-0 was the first game back, and then 21-127-0, 21-20-0, 22-111-0. And then in this game against the Cowboys, 21-118-3. He is insanely healthy right now and just playing so well. Now, for this game at San Francisco next, A.J. Dillon with the thumb and neck injury could be back, but we'll see. If I was the Packers, got A.J. Dillon against the 49ers does not strike me as a good matchup. I would just keep riding Aaron Jones into the ground at this point as hard as I can. Did want to note also that Christian Watson finally made it back from that his latest hamstring pull. He only ran 8 routes on 21 Jordan Love dropbacks. I'd love to see him get a little bit more, but Dobbs and Wicks and Reed and Melton are all playing so well. It's hard to get Christian Watson more. So I think we'll continue to see a bit of a rotation there. Also, Luke Musgrave had a nice impact in this game. He ran 8 routes. Tucker Kraft ran 14. Could see Luke Musgrave playing a little bit more here coming up against the 49ers.
Yeah, 2 big hits in the draft there in Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, both big contributors down the stretch. One other thing I wanted to note, Micah Parsons had 19 pass rush attempts in this game. He generated 1 pressure. Zach Tom at right tackle for the Packers did an awesome job. Obviously, they gave him some help, but Zach Tom, the Packers have a way of finding like 2nd to 6th round offensive linemen over the years who become, high end to, above average to high end starters. And it looks like Zach Tom could be that next guy, but just eliminating Micah Parsons from, making any sort of disruption. That was huge for the Packers offense, which absolutely shredded.
Okay. We have all offseason to talk about the Cowboys and eliminated teams, but I did want to just get your take, Evan, on what happened to the Cowboys. I know the final score looked close. I know Dak had some big numbers. It was not this close. The Cowboys were down 27-0 on a pick six late in the second quarter. They were down 34-10 midway through their third quarter. Dak was not good in the first half. Tried to force a couple of throws to CD that were telegraphed and got picked off. But really, the shocking part to me was the defense getting shredded by Jordan Love. Anyways, Evan, people are now calling for Mike McCarthy's head. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but what did you think of Cowboys' performance and their outlook going forward?
Well, and it was a bad game for Dak Prescott. Plain and simple. Jair Alexander was incredible in this game. It seemed like every pass that Dak threw was contested, and he dropped back the pass for again 64 times. A lot, he wound up with over 400 yards. A lot of it was in essentially garbage time. The Packers did a lot to take away CeeDee Lamb, especially early in the game. Used double teams and different ways to eliminate his impact. And Brandon Cooks didn't play well. I mean, Brandon Cooks ran some bad routes. I saw Cole Beasley call out Brandon Cooks for a bad route. I want Jair Alexander's interception. Like the Cowboys just really played a bad game, which was shocking for a team that had won 16 straight games at home and was facing at home a team that was 9-8 during the regular season. It was a shocking upset. And yeah, I mean, the focus now turns to whether the Cowboys are going to bring back Mike McCarthy. And my guess is that they will not.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know that they can do, not that I love Mike McCarthy, but I don't know. I'm not sure they can do better, but we'll see. Maybe they can. And that'll be an interesting one to follow. So Packers now advance to a road game against the 49ers. 49ers will come into this game really healthy, I think. I believe Trent Williams is going to be fine. I know he was dealing with some things down the stretch. Debo is always banged up. He's going to be good. To me, the 49ers outlook just comes down to Brock Purdy. If Brock Purdy can play reasonably well to good for the next 3 games, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, they opened as a 9.5-point favorite here home against Green Bay. Talent gap between them and other teams, I think, is pretty massive. So, yeah, Evan, any 49ers thoughts for you as they come out of their bye?
No, I mean, they rested a bunch of starters in the final game. Obviously, Trent Williams actually did play. He's going to be good to go. We'll talk about it on Friday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they've essentially had 2 weeks off.
Yep. All right. Second biggest surprise of the week, I guess, was not that the Texans won and beat the Browns. It's the way they did it. They absolutely destroyed the Browns 45-14. CJ Stroud, who we've been talking about all year, was unreal. Nico Collins was unreal. Could have had a way bigger game if they needed it. Derek Stingley, who actually we talked about it. Derek Stingley had not shadowed. Credit to the Texans coaches.
He had played 4 snaps all season at right corner. Hadn't shadowed a single time all season. Right.
And so the Texans coaches decide, hey, listen, Amari Cooper just gave us 265 yards a month ago. Why don't we just put Stingley in shadow coverage for the first time all season? He does it. He was awesome. So, man, so much to be excited about if you are a Texans fan right now. Evan, what was your reaction to them just slaughtering the Browns?
Yeah, Derek Stingley had 45 snaps in pass coverage against the Browns. He was targeted 3 times. He allowed 1 catch for -6 yards. So that was a shutdown performance from a cornerback who next year, I mean, we're probably going to have to worry about him a little bit, as far as shadow corners go. And I would expect him to shadow, I don't know, somebody. I would maybe Zay Flowers in the divisional round. But yeah, awesome performance by a player that was drafted really highly and, kind of was a little bit up and down, dealt with some injuries. Obviously, he's an incredible talent. CJ Stroud, going back to when Underhill asked me about the top 10, who would I rank as the top 10 corners? I had CJ Stroud as number 5 behind Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Joe Burrow. I thought it was close between CJ Stroud and Joe Burrow, and then Justin Herbert at number 6. So I don't know. How would you rank the top 5 for, let's say, the next 1 to 3 years?
God, I would have to sit down and think about this. You can't put me on the spot with stuff like this. Let's do an episode later this year where we rank We should rank all 32 starting quarterbacks. That would be a fun off-season show.
Well, I think we're going to do an award show.
Yes.
Shoot, maybe we'll mix it in with it. Or do we hook Ryan Reynolds?
Yes, Ryan. We'll be doing an award show Wednesday. Stay tuned for that. We're going to give our picks for each of the award categories. That'll be out tomorrow night.
Maybe we can mix in a 2024 MVP.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
Noah Brown went on injured reserve, which is a little bit of an underrated loss. But yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud was incredible. You know, I go back and forth on the home road splits for like the Browns defense. It was shocking to me just when I sat down and did the math that they were allowing 30 points per game on the road, wound up giving up 45 here. Now they were pick sixes and stuff. But the Browns defense just was never the same on the road for whatever reason. And the Texans were able to capitalize.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you know, the Browns defense, which had been so elite, to get shredded here is crazy. I had just a couple small fantasy notes. Evan noted the Noah Brown injury, hurt his shoulder in this game. He's out for the season. John Mechie, I thought actually played a pretty good game. He ran about twice as many routes as Xavier Hutchinson. So I think it'll be Nico Collins, Robert Woods, John Mechie as the 3 wide receiver set against the Ravens with Xavier Hutchinson as the wide receiver 4. And then the other thing, man, Devin Singletary, just like the gap just keeps getting wider and wider. I mean, since week 14, Dameon Pierce has only played 41 snaps. Devin Singletary has played 243. We know Dare mixes in a little bit. Dare Gunawable mixes in a little bit in long down and distance stuff, but this is Devin Singletary's backfield and role. And yeah, super impressive. We'll talk about him more on Friday. Browns. I mean, look, they went about as far as they can go. Stefanski's going to win Coach of the Year. They didn't have Nick Chubb. They didn't have Jack Conklin. They didn't have Kedrick Wills.
Kedrick Wills, yeah.
Yeah. Deshaun Watson had right shoulder surgery. They expect him back sometime in the spring. So I think they went about as far as they can go. The problem is they don't have a round 1 pick. Houston has it as part of the Deshaun Watson trade. And from what we saw from Deshaun Watson, he is guaranteed $230 million. I mean, if he stinks, this is a worse spot than the Broncos are/were in with Russell Wilson. So outlook for the Browns maybe isn't as rosy as maybe it should be. But I don't know, Evan, what do you think of the Browns' performance and anything on them going forward?
For as fun of a story as the Browns were down the stretch, and they were a legitimately fun team to watch on a weekly basis, their future is about as murky as it gets. You got to think that they're going to bring back Joe Flacco, right?
I would.
Yeah, I mean, I would. And then if Deshaun Watson doesn't play well for the first 2.5 games, you know the calls are going to start coming for Joe Flacco. So, man, they are in a low-key, really tough spot. They still have a really good roster. They have a great coach. You know, I love their GM, Andrew Berry. But from a quarterback standpoint, did you see the memes of like Deshaun Watson looking at CJ Stroud? I mean, it's just like, from a quarterback standpoint, man, their future is like, like Deshaun Watson better play well.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go to the Ravens, who are on a bye. They will be hosting the Texans in the divisional round game. Big note for the Ravens is that Mark Andrews last week had his window to return off IR opened. I just saw today, we're recording this Tuesday around 2 Eastern. Mark Andrews is at practice today. He's running around a little bit. Doesn't mean he's definitely going to play this week, but it's at least possible. And it seems like if they make it to the conference championship game, I'd bet on Andrews being back for that, which is crazy considering when he went down in week 11, I thought for sure Mark Andrews was done for the year. You know, cracked his leg, needed surgery. So that's the big note on the Ravens. Ravens starters haven't played since that Miami win, or most of their starters haven't played since that Miami win in week 17. They are a 9-point favorite here against the Texans. Evan, any Ravens notes for you as they get set to come out of their bye?
Yeah, Zay Flowers will get some needed rest. Their offensive line, Ronnie Stanley in particular, will get some needed rest, or will be coming off some needed rest. But yeah, that's the big story. You know, I've kind of gotten indications. I think that Mark Andrews might play this week. Mm-hmm. We'll have to see about that. Will Todd Monken find ways to incorporate Isaiah Likely into the offense? See, that's something that they could do, though. Like, they could kind of ease Mark Andrews back in because Isaiah Likely has been playing so well, and essentially use them as like 50, like in a 50-50 timeshare.
I like that because I don't think the Ravens think they can be on the field together. So if you're going to ease Mark Andrews in, I don't think you'll miss too much of a beat with Isaiah Likely. I like that strategy. We do have Likely and Andrews ranked very close together in the playoff best ball stuff. We'll adjust that based on how likely is Andrews to play. Obviously, if Andrews is playing, the gap between him and Likely in the rankings should be a bit wider. But yeah, be sure to check out all those playoff best ball rankings. I do think that, Texans defense played well against Flacco, but man, Texans defense, Ravens should, we'll talk about it on Friday, but I think Ravens will not have a problem against Texans defense. All right. Let's go to the other AFC game that happened this past weekend. The Chiefs get a dominant defensive performance. They gave up that one bomb in the second quarter to Tyreek Hill for a touchdown. Otherwise, defense gave up nothing in a 26-7 win. And yeah, Waddle didn't look like he was 100%. They had injuries all over, but still, when everyone is healthy for this Chiefs defense, they might be the best defense in the entire league, which is saying a lot. Evan, what do you think of Chiefs' impressive win over the Dolphins in the bitter cold on Saturday night?
Yeah, I thought it was a predictable sort of outcome. Obviously not necessarily by, 19 points.
Yeah.
But the Dolphins were just at such a severe disadvantage. They were limping in, especially on defense. They played really well on defense until the final couple games, and they just got like 5 critical injuries.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were without their top 3 edge rushers. The way that you get after the Chiefs is to try to beat up on their offensive tackles, Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor, and the Dolphins just lost their ability to do that because they had lost Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Andrew Van Ginkel. And they lost like multiple linebackers and, didn't have Xavier Howard. And then, Javon Holland, is limping around with injuries to both knees. It's just, it was never, I don't think it was ever going to happen in this sort of a setting for the Dolphins. So I was very unsurprised by that result. Not surprising.
When Jerry McKinnon is out, and by the way, Jerry McKinnon, I think, is out for the entire playoffs, Isaiah Pacheco continues to be an absolute smash, 24 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown here. The other fantasy note that I had was, man, I played so much Mecole Hardman and I drafted so much Mecole Hardman, and it was actually kind of right. I mean, he ran 19 routes on 43 Mahomes dropbacks, which isn't great, but he got like 4 bombs that looked like they had real chances to be completed, not prayer yards, like actual, and he just didn't go for them or got a penalty or didn't lay out. It was really weird. If you want to see the clips of all of Mecole Hardman's targets, I tweeted it yesterday or a couple days ago. But yeah, I like the way they're using him. Again, Mecole Hardman ran 19 routes, MVS only 18, Richie James 10, Justin Ross was inactive. So, Rashee Rice 39 out of 43 routes. Guy is an absolute stud. But beyond that, I love them getting some chance for Mecole Hardman, but maybe he's just not good enough. They play at the Bills next, the premier game of the divisional round. Chiefs, Bills.
Yeah, Mecole Hardman not good at the game. Rashee Rice good at the game.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting. The Dolphins played him in like a ton of off coverage, and his strength is run after catch. So that was a little bit surprising to me. To go back to Pacheco, who has been running really well for an extended period of time at this point, 24 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown. I think that the Chiefs, they can be a power running team. If you look at the makeup, especially of the right side of their offensive line, and Trey Smith, their right guard, who they stole in the 6th round a few years ago, did not have his best year, but he was awesome in this game against the banged up Dolphins defensive front. Their right tackle, Juwan Taylor, again, a big-time liability in pass protection, way too many penalties, but he is a load at right tackle, and then Creed Humphrey at center is a stud. So I think they can be a power running team, and you've seen flashes of that. You saw flashes of that against the Dolphins. You saw flashes of that in that game against the Bengals late in the year. Their passing game obviously is not where it used to be, and but they can run the ball with authority. Also, Travis Kelce, a couple of drops. I don't know if you saw those in the game, but I did.
I did see them. I also felt bad for Kelsey's mom. I tweeted out the video, like she's up there in the box. She didn't sign up to do a swag whatever dance or whatever, so she's sitting there. All these idiots are swagging back and forth, and Kelsey's poor mom is sitting there. I watched that like 20 times. I was laughing so hard just looking at Kelsey's mom's face. You got to find that. I tweeted that one too. I do think on their pass game, like Rashee Rice as a full-time player, this point in the season, I would not consider him a rookie. Makes a huge difference. Dude is awesome. So, they have a legit number one wide receiver now, and I think that makes a big difference. Definitely are live to win in Buffalo. That's a 2.5 point spread.
One more thing. L'Jarius Sneed.
Yeah.
He's a bad boy, isn't he?
I know.
What did Tyreek tweet that he jammed my ass to Cancun? like literally, which is kind of a, oftentimes athletes, they got big egos. They're really good at what they do. But that was like sort of like a I don't know, it was kind of like a cool tweet, I thought, by Tyreek, because like it's funny because it's like true.
Oh yeah.
Like Tyreek Hill is going straight to Cancun because he's out of the playoffs.
Yeah, there's some highlights out there of L'Jarius Sneed just press coverage, not letting guys get out 1 or 2 yards. I mean, it's impressive stuff.
Yeah, and I assume that L'Jarius Sneed will try to do that to Stephon Diggs in week 20.
Just to close the loop on the Dolphins, I know all the Tua haters out there took this as a chance to dance on Tua's grave, to say you can't win with Tua. Tua sucks. I don't agree, man. Like, he had no offensive line in this game or much of the season. Jalen Waddle was a shell of himself. Tyreek may not be 100%. It's freaking negative 30 degrees. You're on the road playing the best defense in the NFL, perhaps. Of course you're going to fail. And I get that Tua failed against Baltimore also in that week 17 game. But, man, I think if the Dolphins defense had stayed healthy, you can win with Tua. And Waddle had stayed healthy, like, you can win a Super Bowl with Tua. I'm not saying he's a superstar, but I still think you can win with Tua with the makeup of this team. So I'm not panicked on the Dolphins outlook going forward. Evan, any Dolphins thoughts as they head to their offseason?
I agree with that. I would say that I would like to see the Dolphins make another addition at pass catcher.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, their offense becomes a lot more limited. When they lose, when Tyreek Hill's banged up and Jalen Waddle can't play or is banged up, like, we like it from fantasy that they have such a narrow target distribution, but from a real life standpoint, Cedric Wilson, Braxton Berrios, Durham Smythe, like, these guys aren't getting it done. It would be nice if they could get like a field stretching tight end or something like that.
Yeah. I believe the Dolphins will have the 22nd overall pick in the draft. So certainly we'll get a look at a good player there. All right. Let's go to the Bills game. So Bills game got moved to Monday, and the weather was not a factor. I mean, I didn't think it was a major factor at all. They got up 21-0 on the Steelers on some insane Josh Allen throws and an insane Josh Allen run. He finished with 4 more total touchdowns. Allen has now scored at least 20 DraftKings points in 35 of his last 43 games. I mean, dude just accounts for such a high percentage of the Bills' touchdowns. It's so hard for him to fail on a fantasy basis. Weekly, Evan, what do you think of Bills' relatively easy win over the Steelers yesterday?
Yeah, no, they've won 6 in a row. I mean, when they came out and went up 14-0, I bet the Steelers to cover at +10, and I was like, no, this is not going to happen. I knew, at least early. I kind of like it when early that your bets, because then you could just give up and root for other stuff like the Josh Allen rushing overs, which we did get because of that monster touchdown. Which, by the way, I've seen him draw some criticism because, he did the fake slide. He really just did like a hesitation move.
Yeah.
Broke that dude's ankles and then went straight to the house. I mean, he is an absolute freak of nature, as we've known for years at this point. I thought it was cool after the game in his press conference. He was asked like, man, there's so much pressure on you every single week. They really had to like win out. They literally had to win their final 6 or their final 5 games, and they did do that. They've now won 6 in a row against several tough opponents. And he responded with, you know what? We like that adversity because it put us in a position where we had to become comfortable feeling uncomfortable. And so they're just playing loose. And I mean, you can see that on the field. Now, they did suffer a ton. They're dealing with a ton more injuries on defense. Yeah. I mean, they lost Christian Benford in this game. Terrell Bernard, Taron Johnson, all these guys play a ton of snaps. Rasul Douglas did not play. Tyrell Dotson did not play. Those are 5 big contributors on defense. We already know that they lost the studs early in the year, Tre'Davious White and Matt Milano. So they're back in that position of having to deal with potentially some major injuries on defense. And their defense has been playing really well for an extended stretch as well.
Yeah, they're going to have to find a way to rise up at home. I think if the defense was healthy, they would be a 3.5 point favorite over the Chiefs. Instead, they are a 2.5 point favorite over the Chiefs here. By the way, Gabe Davis, of course, did not play in this game with that PCL sprain. Steph Diggs, 31 routes on 34 Allen dropbacks. Shakir, 29. Sherfield, 19. Hardy, 10. Isabella, 5. So Shakir was out there a ton. I thought he played well, just did not earn enough targets. And they didn't throw that much, only 34 dropbacks. Kincaid seemed to get the ball deeper down the field, but his role didn't really change. Only 65% of the routes, 22 of his snaps slot or wide, 15 inline. So, pass game can be fine. I do think they benefit in a big way, even if it's just clearing out for other people, if Gabe Davis can get healthy. But these PCL sprains are not good. So we'll see if Gabe Davis can play here against the Chiefs. Let's wrap up on the Steelers real quick. So listen, man, the Steelers did not deserve to be in the playoffs, in my opinion. Like, just not good enough. So you can't win in Buffalo against Josh Allen with Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky or whatever. Like, you just can't win. And their offensive line was the worst out of any team in the playoffs per Thorne. He had them 14th out of 14. So look, man, they were drawing real thin to win in this game. They were lucky to be here. They don't have a quarterback going forward. They have to get one. Any Steelers thoughts as they head to the offseason, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, they need to go get a quarterback, obviously. I mean, what kind of surprised me in this game was that the Bills came out gashing the Steelers up the middle on runs from James Cook. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, again, not getting the plus 10. I know that was what was most surprising to me, is that how the Bills were able to just gash him up the middle.
Yeah, and not just quarterback, but like Steelers have had offensive line problems for what? I don't know, 5 years. I mean, maybe more. I mean, they have major offensive line problems.
They can run block, but they were never, set up to be a team that could come back, come from behind.
Yeah.
They can run block, but you're right. I mean, they definitely need to figure out something else in pass protection.
All right, let's go back to the NFC now for these final 2 games. Lions get a great win. Not only, and everybody was picking the Rams, and Lions were 3-point favorites. They won the game, didn't cover. First playoff win since 1991. And now they get to host another playoff game, and they're a 6.5 point favorite here against the Bucs. I mean, first playoff win since 1991. They have a really, really good chance to go to the NFC Championship game. I thought Goff was pretty good. Josh Reynolds with Khalif Raymond out, 580 on 7 targets. They got Sam Laporta to play in this game somehow. He looked okay, I thought, 24 routes on 30 Goff dropbacks. But yeah, just credit to Dan Campbell and the entire organization. Hopefully you guys saw that video in the locker room. Emotional team, emotional guys. And yeah, I know we did the whole #OurLions bit last year. Happy for the Lions. Evan, what do you think of their win over the Rams?
This was just like a really quality football game. Obviously it could have gone either way. Jared Goff was excellent. His protection was excellent. The Rams generated only 6 pressures in this game. When Jared Goff was not pressured, he was 21 for 21. You saw it in the locker room after the game. Like, he got the game ball. He was so jacked up. He's usually not a guy who shows a lot of emotion, but man, that dude was jacked up. And, got to love Dan Campbell, who, I criticize a little bit in the final 2 games, but I mean, never, no love lost at any point. I just want to do a little defense of Jameson Williams against the spreadsheet socialists, because we've been catching some internal flack here. Jameson Williams, he's appeared in 19 games. Okay. And the Lions are 14-5 in those 19 games. Over the Lions' last 19 games where Jameson Williams did not play, the Lions are 9-10. And I know you say wide receiver wins, okay? And, you do your little memes and your hashtags. But Brian Baldinger has a great – well, first of all, let me start with more defense. So Jameson Williams, and we've seen him get more incorporated in the offense from a snap count percentage lately. But he has not even had a training camp yet in the NFL. He came out of school and he had an ACL and he wasn't ready until like I think week 5 of his rookie season. And he had this stupid suspension for gambling entering his second season. He wasn't allowed to participate in training camp.
He pulled his hamstring.
That all right, yeah, that too. And so he hasn't had a training camp. And all right, Brian Baldinger did this great breakdown of him, just looking at all of his routes. And look, we want target earners in fantasy, obviously. That we need opportunity. We need dudes who catch the ball. And he hasn't been a target earner to this point. But when you look at his routes, this dude draws a shit ton of coverage. And I mean, he gets bracketed actually by the defense, even though he hasn't been a target earner. I still think that he can be a target earner. He was at the highest level of college football. And I think that with a full training camp, I don't know, he's going to be an interesting guy to rank next year. I'm sure that we will, we'll have our arguments with Leone about that. But he, I don't know, he's going to be an interesting guy to rank. I'll leave it at that.
For sure. And it's not a great sign that Josh Reynolds comes into this huge game and outplays him, right? Like, that's not a great sign. But I still agree that upside is obviously there for Jameson. The guy that you don't have to question, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 10 100-yard games in 17 appearances this season. I mean, just an absolutely insane role and quality. These CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra roles where you're in the slot, but you're also the best wide receiver on the field is just so valuable. So again, Lions will host Tampa as a 6.5-point favorite here coming up in the divisional round. Sam
Laporta, 80% of the snaps, by the way.
Crazy.
Only 3 targets. I don't think he looked particularly good. He had 13 yards. We did get a touchdown, but 87, what a tough dude.
Yep. Rams, just to close the loop on them, Stafford took a huge hit. Looked like his eyes rolled back in his head. Somehow he keeps playing. 367 yards and 2 touchdowns, no INTs. A lot of like the stuff that got lost in my stupid Puka tweet was like, Matthew Stafford is one of the best quarterbacks of our generation. And people actually argue that Matthew Stafford shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. I could not disagree more. I think Matthew Stafford is an easy Hall of Famer, in my opinion, if nothing else, for being the quarterback behind 3 of the best seasons ever, Cooper Kupp's, Calvin Johnson's, and Puka Nakua's rookie year. So anyways, I hope Stafford comes back. I hope McVay comes back. I love watching Stafford play. Evan, any reaction to Rams as they head to their offseason?
I really like that take that Matthew Stafford is a Hall of Famer, and I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I don't. What do we have left to say about Puka Nacua? And even Kyron Williams.
Yeah,
I think that the Rams might lose their defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris. But entering this season, I think I predicted that this would be Sean McVay and Les Snead's last year with the Rams, and I was dead wrong about that. So I will capitulate.
One thing on Puka, like, he just dominated Cooper Kupp. I mean, Cooper Kupp got 9 targets in this game. He went 5, 27-0. Puka got 10 targets, went 9, 181, 1. And we talked about this a little bit on Friday. We had Puka projected decently ahead of Cooper Kupp, and I know that made some people uncomfortable, but to me, it's like not even a question towards the end of the year that Puka was the better option in real life and fantasy for Matthew Stafford. Also, Tyler Higbee blew out his ACL on what looked like, people are calling a dirty hit. I don't know about that. You can't hit the guy high. You can't hit him low. So I get that it's hard. But Tyler Higbee, at his age, I'd be shocked if he's ready to start next season. Keep your eye on Davis Allen, who made some plays in this game.
Like him.
Rams.
Yeah. Dynasty sleeper right there.
Bucks. So Baker Mayfield came into this game dealing with rib and ankle issues. They listed him questionable. Obviously, he was going to play, and he played well. 337 yards and 3 touchdowns on 36 attempts. Honestly, should have been more. I don't know if you guys saw, but Mike Evans, 2 bombs in his hands. I don't even know how he dropped them. 2 absolute bombs in Mike Evans' hands that he dropped. But anyways, Cade Otton, Trey Palmer, David Moore. Baker was getting it to everyone in this game last night. And that's what happens when you play the Eagles defense. But still, impressive performance for Baker. Evan, what'd you think of Bucks game last night?
Yeah, and this offense had looked dead. We talked about it in their previous 2 games. But yeah, that Eagles defense will pop you right back up. Yeah, Mike Evans, that was one of the things I got wrong. I thought he would have a huge game, and obviously the opportunities were there. and he messed it up. So he did not have a big game, but it was still plenty. I mean, the Eagles were a bad team. I thought that was almost, they were like a bottom 5 team over the final 2 months of the season. And I thought that was almost obvious. And so I had the Bucs winning this game, and they were able to win, obviously, by a much bigger margin than 23-point margin, which was incredible. And even with leaving yards on the field, what they did in particular is they destroyed the Eagles on crossing routes. David Moore's big play happened on a crossing route. Cade Otton, who never has big plays, had like a 25-yard reception, a 24-yard reception on a crosser. I don't know if you saw Ray Lewis on the Manning cast ripping the Eagles tackling, but he was like, dude, tackling is all about angles, and everyone is it's like they're playing independently. They're not working together to use the angles on the field to their advantage. On the Trey Palmer touchdown, this was particularly evident. 56-yard touchdown to Trey Palmer. Palmer cut. If you look at the next gen dots, it is particularly like obvious how bad this tackling, the entity of tackling that the Eagles had was, because Trey Palmer gets to the outside. He makes the first guy miss. There are 3 guys at the same time converging on him, and it's Trey Palmer just popping out the top because they're not working together. They're working independently. And Ray Lewis really harped on that. And that defense was just absolute trash. Obviously, changing play callers from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia made no positive impact whatsoever. Unsurprisingly, I mean, Matt Patricia, he's a fraud.
Yeah. Bucs play at Detroit coming up. I mean, I think Detroit is way, way, way better. We'll talk more about that matchup on Friday, though. Last team here to do is indeed the Eagles, as Evan just alluded to. I mean, they lost 6 of their final 7 games. The only game that they won in that stretch was against the DeVito Giants. And like, the team is too talented for this, right? Like, league best offensive line, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, Goddard, Hurts, Swift, ton of draft capital on the defensive line. And for them to crumble like this, I mean, people are calling for Nick Sirianni's job just after he went to the Super Bowl, So
and won 11 games.
But I get it, because they're really talented. For them to crumble like this, they didn't look like they want to even be there last night against Tampa. So what's your outlook? Do you think Sirianni keeps his job? And what's your outlook for the Eagles going forward?
Here's the thing. If Nick Sirianni keeps his job, he's going to enter next season on the hottest seat in the league. And so, and like, they had locker room problems. I mean, you saw Goddard. Apparently Goddard called Hurts a bitch on the sideline. A.J. Brown he can be a problem on the sideline too. Again, the defense was, the defensive individual players were working independently and not as a unit. The defensive coordinator change did not work out whatsoever. Every single tape analyst is killing the Eagles for having no answers for the blitz. Every single one of them. And they were right. And they were doing that before the playoff game. And the Eagles did nothing to fix it. And the Bucs knew it. I mean, the Bucs blitzed, like crazy. And everyone knew that was going to happen. And the Eagles had no response to that. I actually think that, look, when you look at it on paper, yeah, they went to the Super Bowl last year. They won 11 games. It's like, what? You're really going to fire the coach? I actually think that they should strongly consider it, because, I mean, it was a shocking and stunning collapse, and they had no answers for it whatsoever. And I mean, I think that their personnel is actually a little bit overrated, especially on defense.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, I would seriously consider. It's just, are you going to be able to find who are you going to go with?
Right. I would consider it also. I thought that the defensive line was hiding the cornerback woes for a long time for the Eagles, and defensive line just stopped getting pressure, and that exposed a lot of their secondary problems. I also was weird, like, this should have been a rushing game for Jalen Hurts, and he had one designed rush, and he had the finger thing. There was no A.J. Brown. Like, why not do one of the things that Jalen Hurts does best, which is run the football? They didn't do that at all. Jason Kelce announced his retirement after this game. That's going to be a huge loss for them, too. You can head to Brandon Thorne's Twitter to see some cut-ups of Jason Kelce dominating throughout his career. So, yeah, horrific finish for the Eagles. All right, that is going to do it for this divisional round preview, team by team, and wildcard recap. We'll be back tomorrow night where Evan, myself, and Ryan Reynolds will give out our awards for the entire season in all of the awards categories. Will the voters listen to us? Almost certainly not, but it should still be a very fun exercise. Also, Friday night for in-season subscribers, or Friday during the day for in-season subscribers, we will be back for Establish a Show, breaking down all 4 divisional games from a DFS perspective. If you don't have in-season, weekly and monthly options are indeed available right now. For Evan, for producer Luke, for producer Ryan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.